Okay, let's move to 4. Play. Okay, it can't. What? Hi, I'm Alex Jordan from Lone Color Grading and FilmSimplified.com. For the last 3 or 4 videos, I have been comparing the new Macs, so the M1 and the M1 Pro Max model, the M1 Pro and the M1 Max model with the standard M1 from last year. However, today is the last video in the series, and I'm going to be comparing the performance of the top tier model. So this is the 64 gigs of RAM, the M1 Max the processor. It's the highest end model. I'm going to be betting it against the PC. This test should be exciting. I will be repeating all the tests I've done before, so playing hard to play formats, using color effects, like adding a lot of color effects, adding slow motion, and all the other tests in order to compare both systems. And of course, we're going to be doing all of that with no optimizations at all in order to repeat the same tests from before. Exactly. So this is the PC that we're going to be testing today. It's a Razer. It's a gaming PC. I believe this is last year's model. I know it's not the latest and greatest, but it's the one I have access to. The specs is it has i7 with 8 cores, 16 threads, 16 gigs of RAM. It uses a 2070 Super GPU with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. I believe these specs are pretty high for a gaming PC. However, I'm sure there are like crazy gaming PCs out there. And one very important note, I'm using the Studio driver for the NVIDIA card. So the NVIDIA cards come with 2 different kinds of drivers. You can switch between the standard gaming drivers or the studio drivers, which is for content creators. So the drivers on this system have been switched to the studio drivers. Speaking of Resolve, if you're a beginner and you're interested in learning how to use Resolve, you'll love our free crash course that will teach you the basics of every tab in Resolve. Simply go to FilmSimplified.com and sign up for free. So again, no optimizations at all, PC versus Mac. So let's start with film grain. I'll expand the viewer, play, and yeah, the PC has no issues with playing this clip at all. It has film grain. And now let's move to the top end Mac from this tier, play, and again, it plays it back with no issues at all. So for film grain, it's a tie. Next, we have these 4 clips. And as you know from the tests we performed earlier, they all have color effects. And this one is the easiest to play. And the last one is the hardest to play. However, I'm pretty sure this PC will be able to play the first 2 with no issue at all. So we'll just move to the third one directly and the third one directly here on the Mac. Expand the viewer, play. And the PC does not have any issue with playing this at all. And now let's move to the Mac. As we know from last week, it doesn't face any issues playing this clip at all. Plays it back in real time. Next, let's move to the last clip here, which is the hardest clip to play on both systems. And we are using a lot of nodes here, a lot of tracking, a lot of secondaries. It has a dehaze effect. It's basically the hardest clip to play out of all the clips. And let's start with the PC. Play. Again, real time. The PC does not face any issues when playing this clip. And now let's switch to the top end Mac from this here. Play. And again, as we know from last week, no issue at all. So remember, for this Mac, when it comes to color effects, really there was nothing I can throw at these systems that would have like made them slow down or anything. When it comes to color, DaVinci Resolve is unbelievably optimized, and it uses the full power of both systems, so there's no issue at all. Next, let's move to the same noise reduction test that we've performed last week. Again, we have 6 clips here. The first 3 use spatial noise reduction, and the letter 3 uses the temporal noise reduction methods. And again, they go from easy to hard to play. So let's start with the first clip here. It basically uses, it uses spatial noise reduction. The mode is faster, the radius is set to small, and the spatial threshold is set to 50% on both luminance and chrominance, which simply means that this is the easiest clip to play. Full screen, play, and yeah, the PC is Okay, it struggled a bit in the beginning, but now we're getting like full playback, like 23.976 frames per second. Next, let's move to the new M1 Max, the top end model from this year. Play, and we're getting 21 frames per second. However, with the same exact test, with the same clip and the same conditions on the PC, we're getting full playback. So here on the Mac, we're getting 21 frames only, while on the PC we're getting 23.976. So I guess for this one, the PC wins, at least this particular PC. Of course, I'm not saying PCs win, this particular PC wins. Now let's switch to the next step up, which is the spatial noise reduction, still with faster small, but we increased the threshold to 100% on both luminance and chrominance, full screen on the PC and full screen on the Mac. Let's play on the PC and we're getting, again, real-time playback 23.976. However, on the Mac, let's see, we're getting 21 frames per second. So again, when it comes to noise reduction, at least this PC seems to be performing a bit better than the Mac. So this one is giving us 21 frames, and for this one is 23.976. Next, let's move to the hardest test when it comes to spatial noise reduction. So now the mode was changed to better, the radius was changed to medium, and the spatial threshold was changed to 75, which is very hard to play. And let's start with the, let's just make sure that I'm on the same clip here. Yeah, exactly. And let's make sure I'm the same. Yeah. So I'll play on the PC, and on the PC we're getting 12 frames per second, so not real time. And on the Mac we're getting 8 frames per second, so still not real time. However, we're getting a bit more frames on the PC, which is kind of interesting. So this one, the Mac is maxing out at 8, while the PC is up to 13 frames per second. So both of these systems couldn't play this in real time, so I wouldn't say any one of them won. Then we will switch to temporal noise reduction. So this is the easiest setting of temporal noise reduction. We're looking only at 2 frames. The motion estimation is set to faster, and the motion range is to medium, and the threshold is 50%. This is basically the easiest temporal noise reduction. Let's play on the PC, and we're getting, yeah, it struggled a bit, but now we're getting full playback. So this is 23.976. And now let's move to the Mac, play, and we're getting, again, 23.976. So basically they both passed this test. And then we'll switch to the next step up in terms of how hard is it to play the footage. We simply are looking at 5 frames now instead of 2. So let's make sure that I'm on the same clip on both systems. Yeah, so full play, and the PC is giving us 18 frames per second, 17, 18. So it cannot play it back in real time. And now on the Mac side, let's play, and we're getting 23.976. Wow. So for this one, the Mac wins 100%. This shows you that there is no such thing as a faster system in general. Now, both temporal and spatial noise reduction uses different parts of your system. So even though the PC played the spatial noise reduction better, but at least when it comes to temporal noise reduction, it cannot play it back in real time, while the Mac doesn't seem to struggle with that at all. It just plays it back in real time with no issue at all. And finally, we'll switch to the hardest test of all the tests, which is basically temporal noise reduction with threshold increased to 100, and full screen, play, and the PC is giving us 15 frames, 16 frames per second. And now let's switch to the Mac side, play, and we're getting 19 frames per second. However, they both cannot play this kind of clip in real time. So now let's switch to the speed warp test. Now we have 3 clips on each timeline here. The speed of these clips have been reduced to 50%. We're using optical flow. However, only the last clip actually uses speed warp because it's the hardest form to play. So let's start with the first clip on both systems. It basically uses optical flow with the standard faster as the motion estimation method. Let's play, and it plays it back in real time, no issues at all. So I'm getting 23.976 as a playback speed, there's no issue at all. And now let's switch to the Mac, the same clip, play, and again we're getting 23.976. It can play this in real time with no issue at all. Next, let's go to the second clip, which is a bit harder to play because it uses, in the motion estimation, it uses enhanced better. And let's start with the PC, play, and no, it cannot play it back in real time. Let me try to play it one more time. Yeah, we're getting around 13 frames per second. And now let's switch to the Mac. Again, the second clip, I'll play, and well, it can play it back in real time with no issue at all. So another win for the Mac. So let's try to play the second clip. It uses enhanced better and the motion estimation, and it can play it back with no issue at all. I believe these effects uses the neural engine in the processor, and that's why they work better on the Mac in this particular case, so it depends on the effect. However, on the PC, the same clip, if we try to play, is giving us around 13 frames per second. And now let's move to the hardest test, which is basically the test that we all want to see, which is actually using speed warp. So on the PC, let's start with speed warp. Remember, only the last clip uses speed warp, play, and yeah, it cannot play this at all. It didn't even start to play it, so stop. Then I'm going to switch to the Mac, the last clip, speed warp, play, and we're getting around 3 frames per second or 4 frames per second. So both of them cannot play speed warp in real time. So now this is the last group of tests where we test different formats and how well they play on these systems. Again, let's just make sure that there are no optimizations. So proxy mode is off, and here on the Mac also playback proxy mode is off. So we will start with the 12K footage, that is 24 frames per second from the Ursa 12K. Let's move to the beginning, play. And yeah, it can play one stream on the PC side without any issues at all. And now let's switch to the Mac, test the same clip, play, and again, no issue at all. We've tested this earlier. It's basically 23.976. And now let's switch to 2 instances of the same clip on the PC side, play, and no issues at all. We're getting 23.976. And on the Mac side, I'll simply test the same test, and again, no issue at all, 23.976. Don't forget that this format is owned by it's created actually by Blackmagic Design, and it's very easy to play on Resolve. Still 12K. So now let's move to the PC. 12K, 4 streams, play, and again, no issues at all. Plays it back in real time. It doesn't face any issues. And let's move to the Mac side. 4 streams of 12K 24, play, and no issues at all. So now, based on the performance, let's switch now to the 8K 60 frames per second from the same camera. So 8K 60 frames per second, playback, proxy mode off, playback, proxy mode off. And let's move to 2 streams directly because I know they both can play one stream without any issue. So these are 2 8K clips that are 60 frames per second each, play, and no issues at all. Plays it back in real time on the PC side. And on the Mac side, let's switch to the Mac, play, and no issues at all. Now let's move to 4 streams of 8K clips on both systems, play, and again, just plays it back with no issues at all. You can actually take a look at it in full screen. There's no issue at all. Sometimes it stutters a bit when you start to play at the beginning of the play, but then it just goes back into playing, you know. These are 60 frames per second 8K clips. And let's switch to the Mac now. Again, let's go to full screen, play, and no, it cannot play this particular format. So this is 8K 60. On the Mac side, it can't seem to play this in real time. Again, full screen play, and it stutters a lot. It cannot play 4 8K clips, 60 each. However, on the PC side, again, let me just make sure that everything is correct. So here we have 8K 60, playback, proxy mode off. Okay, play. It stutters a bit in the beginning, but then it plays everything back in real time. So at least when it comes to 8K 60 frames per second, the PC won this particular test. Remember, the Mac won some tests, the PC won other tests, so there's no need for us to go Mac is better or PC is better. It's basically different systems, and we're discussing this particular PC against this particular Mac. Just keep that in mind. So now for the impossible footage. This is the C500 for 5.9K, sorry, at 24 frames per second on both systems. Let me just make sure that we have the correct settings. So playback, timeline proxy mode is off, and let's switch to the color page and make sure that we're using full race Canon, which is the hardest. I just want to emphasize that there is no need to use full risk Canon. I'm simply using this format because I know it gives any computer a very hard time. However, in reality, like you saw in my last video, you can simply switch this to full res resolve and get easy playback with no issues at all. However, again, we're trying to stress test these computers. So I'll start with the PC. Let's hope play. And okay. Oh, it can actually play it back in real time on full res Canon. That's interesting. Let's switch to the Mac, the top-end Mac from this year. Again, the same settings. So basically playback, proxy mode off. I'm gonna switch to the color page, and we're on full res Canon. Switch back to edit play, and we're getting 3.5 frames per second. Okay, this is very interesting now. I need to make sure that these numbers are correct. So I really need to double check these settings. So first of all, color. We're in both cases we're using full res Canon. So full res Canon, full res Canon, and then I'll switch to the edit page, and at least on the playback setting, proxy mode is off. Proxy mode is off, and let's try to play again. Okay, this is interesting. So for the Canon R5 on the hardest settings, this PC can play it back in real time. So play, and it stutters a bit in the beginning, but then we're getting full, like, let me just make this full screen for you to see. Play, it will stutter, and then it just plays it back in real time. It's playing C500 footage in real time. Okay, I'm glad I got this PC. I did not use it a lot, frankly. So let's make this full screen on the Mac side. Press play here, full screen, and it cannot play it back in real time at all. However, once we move to the PC, the same file with the same resolution, play, and it stutters a bit, but then it plays it back in real time with no issues. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm surprised. Then let's move to the second test of 2 streams of the same exact clip with format. I know the Mac will not be able to play it because it couldn't play 1 stream, but I'm gonna try 2 now, 2 streams. Play, and no, it cannot. Oh. It's playing it back in real time. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is weird. So let me just check the frames per second. So 2 streams of C500 5.9 at 24 play, and we're getting 23.976. We're actually playing 2 streams of C500 footage in real time. Again, full screen. Play. It stutters a bit in the beginning, but then it just plays 2 streams in real time. Wow. Okay, that was not expected. Okay, let's move to 4. I'm gonna stop testing it on the Mac because I know this format is a bit not easy to play on the Mac side, at least. Play. Okay, it can't. What? Okay, I don't think this is real time, but at least close to real time. So let's just bring the cursor here and play, and we're getting 23.9. It stutters a lot, frankly, in the beginning, but then it claims to be playing the footage at 23.976, but I just need to double check that. So full screen, play, and wait for it. And yep, real-time 4 streams of C500 5.9K footage using the Canon decoder, and it's playing it like it's like nobody's business. This footage, if we try to play it on the Mac, so these are the 4 clips, the same exact settings, play, and nothing will happen. I'll just hit play and I'll just wait, and it's moving at a rate of 4 frames per second. I'm not gonna lie, this wasn't expected. This is the only PC I own. But it seems to be able to play four clips of C500 footage. Let's move to the R5. I wasn't initially going to test R5, but as long as we're here, this is 8K R5 RAW at 24 frames per second. Playback, timeline proxy mode off. I don't know why I keep on testing it. Of course it's going to be off, but I just want to make sure. And full risk Canon on both sides. Let's try one stream. Let's start with the PC play. And we're getting 8 frames per second. Oh, okay, it's claiming to be playing it at 23 frames per second, but it's not. It's stuttering a lot. So even though Resolve is displaying the number 23.976 here, it's not. I can assure you it stutters a lot. And this concludes the test, because I think also, let's try it on the Mac side just to try it once and play. And we're getting 4 frames per second. So this was very interesting. There are certain things like certain types of noise reduction that were played much better by the Mac. Other tests like the C500, which is frankly a pointless test because no one would use this format without any optimization. Remember, these are unrealistic tests that we're doing. We're just trying to push these systems to their limits, but for that test, at least this particular PC did much better than the Mac. And in some other tests, the Mac did better. Now, I'm always very wary of telling people that a particular computer is better than another computer, or like buy this or don't buy that. The problem is, a lot of people want to start using Resolve, want to start filming, want to start becoming creative in one way or another, and they're held back by their belief that in order to start, you need to buy a particular camera, a particular system, a particular thing. That's why I'm always very afraid of recommending one system over another. The only system I was ever able to recommend with good conscience was last year's M1 Max, just because the performance per dollar was just, and still is, unbelievable, which I think today you can buy that processor on the iMacs and the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air. So I'm not going to go into any conclusions here, but just remember, watch the last video that I released, and you will understand that with little optimization, you can make any of these systems work for all of your needs very easily, just because of the unbelievable work that Blackmagic Design do with optimizing DaVinci Resolve. The work they do is unbelievable, and that's why you can turn any computer into a very powerful system by using any form of optimization with Resolve. So please do not take this as, hey, Macs are better than PCs, or PCs are better than Macs, or this computer is better than that. It's basically about what you have, because Resolve is well optimized. It can make even very low-end system work wonders with little optimization. So I hope you like this. If you like this, please visit us at filmsimplified.com, where you can join our free DaVinci Resolve crash course that is designed for the absolute beginner and will take you through every tab in Resolve. Thank you.
filmsimplified.com.